Boom, we are live. Welcome.
Cool.
We're actually, I mistitled this. We are not 2.5 Oyajis tonight. Tonight we are 12. We're like 12.5 Oyajis tonight. we are super Oyajiing the chat. We are back. Someone's got their speakers on. Is that you, Jason?
Oh, sorry. I switched over. See, I wanted to look at comments, so I can't do that.
I think he's got the headphones on.
Just kill the.
Just mute or pause the video playing.
Oh, sorry.
Just kill the.
Normally I blame Victor, but I see Victor is diligently wearing enormous headphones.
Yeah.
Oh, now we're having.
I'm not going to blame him.
These are my gamer headphones, and I'm not a gamer anymore. So.
Normally I blame Victor, but I see Victor is diligently wearing enormous headphones.
So I need to put my headphones in. Okay, hold on.
Or maybe that's it. Or just kill the volume.
Yeah, just press mute on the video.
Okay. Odie Jr., how you doing, man?
So I need to put my headphones in. Okay, hold on.
Maybe
it's kind of like vlog section at the moment. I'm hearing like vlog.
It's usually me who's screwing things up. So thanks for filling in today, Jason.
It's kind of like vlog section at the moment. I still hear it. Vlog.
It's usually
Jason, just pause the video or.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah, you've got it playing there. It'll kill your bandwidth as well, so you don't.
There we go.
Playing. Good.
Okay, sorry guys.
No. Actually, thank you for giving us our customary technical issues. Yes, a happy 2019 to everybody.
Yeah, happy New Year. It's our first show this year.
Yeah.
First show in a couple of months, actually.
Also, I have one announcement that 2.5 Oyajis is going to be all ASMR from now on. Apparently. Yeah, apparently it's gonna make me super it's gonna my AdSense is gonna go crazy if I just talk. So we have to be very soothing when we talk.
You guys gotta I gotta edit my ASMR video, so let's do this quick.
I don't understand it, but it obviously works.
I got Jason here because he's got a beard. I think I would just like to run my fingers through his beard and with a microphone.
And our Oyaji score is going through the roof right now. Just keep doing that.
Your head looks really ASMR, Hiko. If I just scratch your head a little bit.
Little tingles.
Maybe rub my feet on your head.
Yeah, now that's just getting weird. Now you're like crossing fetishes. You should never cross the fetishes. It's like Ghostbusters.
Right. So what about sumo? Is that a fetish?
No.
Well, they have to admit. I mean, the guys, they're
half naked. I know, man.
Well, actually, I have been introduced to some female fans who are really into sumo wrestlers.
Really?
Even though, you wouldn't think, and they really are into the fat guys. So
yeah. Hey, the Fat Boys is one of my favorite rap groups of all time. I totally understand it. I would be a groupie.
I'd forgotten about those guys. Hey, let's start off with an apology. I think we both owe Jason an apology.
Oh yes. We
cannot believe it. Pico brought it to my attention last week. He said,
"Yes,
we've never had."
I was one of the 4 viewers of Radri's stream, and I saw you mention that you'd never been on our show, and I was like,
right.
That can't be right.
I've been on.
That's not true.
I've been on with Hiko individually. Like one night he had, "Hey, come on the show. Victor's not around," and I've been on with Victor individually. But I've never been on an Oyaji show with the 2 of you.
I called up Victor and I said, "Do you realize that we've never had Jason on?" And Victor said the same thing. He said, "No, that can't be possible."
Yeah, I googled it right away. I couldn't find it. But you're right. I couldn't find it.
And I was like, "Whoa!" It was actually, I was seriously shocked at myself.
For years, it's rural bias.
Rural bias. Well, I mean, you have to.
So let's introduce Jason. Properly.
So let me do that. And by the way, just on the rural bias thing, I mean, from where I live, Tokyo. Victor lives as much in the boonies as you do. From
yes, that's true. Tokyoites consider Nagoya to be inakamono.
It's like a cross
country folk.
It's basically like a cross between Cleveland and Idaho. So look, let's back up. Do introductions. So I tell you what, we talk about the true OGs, the true original. I mean, I think we've got a Gen 1, and I think Jason, you're about the same time as me. We're probably what we call Gen 2J vloggers, right?
Yeah, obviously we follow Victor, but I started in 2006 and then actually started vlogging on camera in 2007.
Okay, well, geez,
pretty late.
That would put you in Gen 1, then, wouldn't it?
I'm only 2000. I'm only a year or two ahead of you guys.
Yeah, I think I started after that. So yeah, that would put you actually in that time when it was really, I was going to say the
Apple Milk,
Tokyo Swan, Tokyo Kuni,
Apple Milk, all that stuff.
Those guys. So I mean, been around the block forever, and this is the funny thing. We have gone through like 10 years, more than 10 years of our lives. We've been through significant life stages.
That's right.
While plugging away on this platform, doing our little things. So it's kind of funny. I mean, when we all started out, I mean, Victor and I were neither married. I was married. I think in fact, maybe you've just been married too, but certainly no kids. Right. We've had different jobs, we've had different visas, we've had different sort of, big life events.
Right.
So Taisha Jason, one of the original before, and actually, I think I remember going through this once, and I think you are the guy that gets the credit for having invented the word J-vlog. Is that right?
No. Well, Tikio Sam, he claims that honor.
Well, he claims,
it's such an original name. Who would have thought of J-vlog?
Yeah.
Japan plus vlog, I never would have put that together.
For some reason, I remember going back at this a long time ago when it kind of became a thing, and for some reason, I associated it with you as the inventor.
Actually, I did too. I think you brought it up in the video. I started talking about it.
Yeah,
more than other people.
There was just a time when everyone sort of started using it, but in any case, so you started out as a regular in a way, like the introduction that I would give of you.
I would say Jet. He was a Jet expert in the beginning.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So you were originally a kind of a travel blogger who was here in the Jet program, and you became kind of like the guru of the Jet, sort of the social media guru of the Jet program, right?
That's right.
And whenever anyone had a question about Jet specifically,
ask Jason.
You were like the guy that we'd all link.
Yeah.
And then you finished that and you went away, and then you kind of pivoted from that into being more of a sumo specialist, maybe a few years ago.
But it was gradual, right? You had kind of a vague limbo period.
Yeah,
right?
well, when you finish Jet, you're the maximum you can do is 5 years. And I went home. I had done my 5 years. In 2009, I went back to America for a year. And then I got a job at a university also in very rural Shimane-ken. And when I came back, I felt like I had kind of talked about the whole sort of being new to Japan experience. And there were so many people by that time doing it, and girls and people of color and every other experience that I don't have and can't offer. And so I sort of still made videos from time to time, but I was much more wary. I didn't want to give away where I lived and stuff like that because of some harassment I'd had the first time out.
Yeah, I remember.
And then Sumo really took over, and I've now
in the interim
most of my time to the Sumo channel.
Right, which is the main thing that you're doing now, which is what we should probably end up on. But going through your story as well, there was an interim phase where you were really focused on movies for a long time as well. Right?
Yeah,
you're a big movie guy as well.
I am.
Yeah. So look, can we go back on the timeline? So like, were you doing YouTube right away when you got to Japan, or how did your relationship with Japan start?
So I came to Japan in 2004 on the JET program, which is the Japan Exchange and Teaching Program. You get a job after you graduate college. You can come here and teach in public schools. I got put in a very rural place called Taisha in the town.
And that's where your name came from.
Yeah, and it's near a very famous shrine in Japan called Izumo Taisha Shrine. And I just would point my little Casio camera at my students or activity, but it would only had a tiny chip in it. I didn't even know about buying a card, so I could take like a minute of video.
This is the Exilum that you had in those?
Yeah.
I had one of those. Those were great cameras.
It was great. And so for about a year, all I did was put up like little minute videos, and I was never in them, just pointing at things, and I was getting, 400 or 500 views. It was really just the typical, hey, like family, look at what I'm doing. And none of my family watched, of course. And then one Christmas, one of you maybe made a video, or Tokyo Kuni or somebody, and I turned the video around and I pointed at my face for the first time. And that was December of 2006. And no, 2007. Sorry, 2007.
That's a tough thing to do for the first time. I remember.
And then in 2008, just trying to find something to talk about that other people hadn't talked about. I started talking about Jet and the process of becoming one. And those videos really took off. And that was the focus of my channel probably for the next year and a half. And that's the MyArgonauts channel. And it's those videos are perennial. I still have people send me email about them, and I meet people. I just met people when I went to the Fukuoka Basho. Some people came over to me after I stood up at the end of the day's sumo matches, and I thought, oh, they're going to come over and say, oh, I love your channel. We watch sumo all the time. And they came over, and they were young 20-something Americans and Australians, and they said, you're Jason from MyArgonauts. Oh, we loved your channel. I watched every video when I was becoming a Jet. And they were totally, they didn't know anything about my sumo channel. They just had watched my videos on becoming a Jet.
Wow, so that's great.
They're 10 years old, but people still watch them.
It's good evergreen content, I guess, as well. I mean, it's a huge program.
So you don't update that channel anymore?
Well, I just, if you know, and I know this is going to sound like a plug, but I turned 50 years old this year in 2019.
Really?
Yeah. So I was born in 1969, and I just decided that this year, to kind of get back onto the MyArgonauts channel, I'm going to make a show called 50 Trips Around the Sun. And as I'm a history teacher, each episode is going to be what was going on in politics, movies that year, music that was popular, and then what was going on in my life. So I can kind of look back at it as a diary. So the first five are going to be very light on my reminiscences because I was a baby or I was an infant or a small child. And then it'll get to be more like, what was high school like? What did I grow up doing this? What was it like being parents of immigrants? All this kind of thing. And then Japan will enter, et cetera, et cetera. But the first one was 45 minutes. It's a little long. It's kind of like a laundry vlog. Maybe it should be a podcast. Although I am using iMovie again and putting in pictures and stuff.
I see it. I'm looking at your channel now, right? Okay.
And the second one's going to go up tomorrow. So that'll be 1970. And I'm going to do every year that I've been alive, 50 episodes.
Wow. Victor, are you the same age?
A little older. I'm 51. I'm 1967. Okay. I'm the same age as Louis C.K.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's all of a sudden the positive.
And I do the same thing he does. Hey, by the way, I got a question. Do you mind if I, in front of you? Just for
what? No, not on this episode.
Just 2 or 3. Just 2 or 3 minutes. That's all it'll take. Yeah, I thought you were much younger, actually, but.
Yeah, often people do, and that's a nice compliment, despite the fact that the white is here, and you know.
You look like Dr. Reed, Reed Richards.
Yeah, I got the whole
snow on the roof, but I forget how the rest of that goes.
So that's the new project on MyArgonauts, to try to get me to do something that's not sumo related and to edit again for the first time in a while. So wish me luck. I hope I can stick to it. And you know, not many people watch the first one, but that's okay. I don't really care about the view. More for me, and hopefully it'll catch on in time.
Yeah. Well, again, the nice idea about it is that if you're doing video, if you tag it and set it up, so this is like everything that happened in 1970. Yeah, I think that's a video that's going to aggregate over time. That's not tied.
That's true. Other people are going to be curious about that too.
Yeah.
But before we get into your sumo channel, I'd like to touch upon the problems you had because you were one of the first. You and Apple Milk, I guess. Oh no, Sammy 33, 32. What was her name? Do you remember her?
Yeah,
she was the first one, actually, I think, who was really the victim of trolls and who got trolled off the internet. Would you say you were trolled off the internet? Or?
No, not at all. I just was surprised at how much. Well, first of all, when I first did my videos, I was very open about showing where I lived. Like, here's my apartment, you know, and
here's my address, here's my phone number,
where I worked, and everything. So there was no mystery. And I had Japanese people call up the Board of Education because you're sort of publicly funded by tax money when you're a Jet, and say, look, this guy is making videos when he should be working. That's not how I want my tax dollars spent. So they came and talked to me. You can't do this anymore, et cetera, et cetera. And that's really why I said, okay, well, I got to figure out how to be a vlogger because I need to be able to turn the camera and sit in my room and talk at a camera because I can't film at school anymore. And it was, you know, ended up being a good decision. But yeah, it was weird. And
but you never stopped. It never stopped you.
It never stopped me, and luckily the people I worked with never freaked out about it enough to where they said like you have to take your channel down, or they certainly asked me to delete certain ones.
Oh yeah.
And I was a little naive about what I could show and what I couldn't show, but other than that,
well, the thing is, I mean, I think because we were all the pioneers doing this for the first time when it was a new service, some people had instincts for the risk of doxing. But frankly, I remember at that time it was a thing. When I made A Live in Colors, he said go to Nietzsche and search for your name, and there are whole threads there dedicated just to trying to find
my map is there's a map of my house there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
you can find me. You can find out where I live.
There's bad websites, well, not bad websites. I don't even know what that means, but websites where the people are not nice, and definitely threads about me and
you're just a snowflake.
Everything was with good intent, and anybody that actually watched the footage knew I was not trying. I never came on camera and said, "Fuck this job," or "I hate Japan," or it was never that.
A lot of people did, but no, that's right. You're not.
Yeah, and mine was never that, and so I think my bosses sort of understood that, and.
But I think the other thing was, and this is where the internet has changed and matured over time. But I think back in those days, there were just big communities of probably equally bored, lonely sort of people who just did this like as a hobby. They would just try to find people on the internet and dox them and post their information, and that'd be like the win. Obviously, it doesn't not happen now, but I think people are a bit more savvy about being careful about their own information. And frankly, I think the excitement or the thrill of I mean, I'm sure there are people who still try to get info on Hikakin and Megwin and people like that, but frankly, we're way off the radar now, right? I mean, you have to have at least 1 million subscribers to even be interesting to chase anymore for a start. Yeah. So it's kind of changed, but yeah, you guys were kind of in a way the pioneers and the good and the bad, I suppose, on that.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't deter me. I just said, I'm just now more private about. I don't say the name of the school where I work. I don't say the name of the city I live in. I'm a little more circumspect. You could probably figure it out if you cared, but I don't think most people do.
Yeah.
I'm careful about that too now, even though everyone can find my school. And I used to get phone calls asking for the manager to fire me, which was of course me. So
yeah.
It's always funny. So that was basically it wasn't so dramatic. It wasn't
No. I mean, the only other thing that's happened ever since then is, how for a while we all went through the phase where we were making shirts. Right. And I made some shirts. And I made a few sumo shirts, and I made a couple that actually said the name of a wrestler on them. One said Hakuho is the Yokozuna, Kiseno Sato is the Yokozuna, Aramafuji. And somebody called up the Board of Education where I work now.
Really?
Which I work for a private school, so it's kind of weird. I don't know. They must have known I lived in such and such prefecture, and they said you can't sell goods with somebody's name on them. That's their intellectual property.
Japan is really weird, but
not a likeness or a logo or anything. It just said his name, but they said you can't, tell him that he can't do that anymore. He has to not, or else he's going to get in trouble. And so my principal of my school just pulled me into his office one day and said, "Do you sell shirts that say Hakuho?" And I said, "Yeah, you know." On my channel. And I said,
weird conversation.
I said, like, "How do you know that?" And he's like, "We got a phone call. You can't sell those anymore. You gotta stop that." And I said, "All right." And that was it, So
yeah,
weird.
Yeah. Well, Hiko knows more about a lot more about this than I do. But apparently in Japan, they've got these personal privacy laws. Like if you go on Japanese Wikipedia, there's not even pictures of famous people. Like type in anybody famous in Japan and go to the Japanese Wikipedia. You can't even find a picture of them. You can find them on Google Images, but not on the Wikipedia page.
Sure.
It's bizarre. Everyone knows what they look like, but you can't post a picture there.
Yeah.
Crazy, right?
It never occurred. Yeah. So all
of that is rubbish. But yeah, the Hakuho shirt thing, of course, is like, but this is just it. I mean, and Japan is to some degree. It's not like everybody in Japan is a busybody, but there is a substantial population of people on the internet apparently with a lot of free time that enjoy going around finding things to complain about. It's like when there was I remember a few months ago, there was a thing during the summer, during the heat wave, where there was some like NHK coverage, which showed some sort of TV news footage, which inadvertently caught near the scene of a fire, some fire station employees buying sports drinks, because they were dehydrated from a convenience store.
Right.
And someone who saw it on TV complained to the city council that firemen are not allowed to go and purchase from civilian shops while they're on duty.
Really?
Yes. So somebody took it upon themselves to complain about dehydrated firemen in the middle of fighting a fire, buying drinks to rehydrate themselves. And fortunately, in that case, shows how Japan's kind of moving on. Everyone said, "Oh my God, that's totally ridiculous." And actually, they actually amended the rules to explicitly allow city employees to go and do that from now on, to give away the pretext. But there's always, there's 120 million people crammed into a small space. There's always going to be someone who's going to say something. You can't do that. Put that away. I mean, that's what Japan essentially is, right? It's a whole bunch of unwritten rules and busybodies enforcing them.
Yeah.
But yeah,
there's some rule about police officers can't drink. You can't offer one a cup of coffee. Or
well, it's the same as with the firefighters.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
there was a case
awesome.
with the firefighters. Oh, so I remember there was a thing where there were some police officers in Vancouver having Starbucks, and there was like a photo of this on the internet, and there was some commentary about how Japanese people were stunned seeing it because it wouldn't be allowed in Japan. But then they reflected that why is it allowed in Japan? How stupid is that?
Yeah.
Right.
So Japan in its own way is advancing in small baby steps. But the other thing that is like Japan's getting so old. It's mainly as elderly come to dominate. That this is going to remain a problem. Even if young people loosen up on it.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be the old cranky guy, get off my lawn guy, right?
Yes. I mean,
well, we've seen that recently with these outrageous LGBT comments by some of these old politicians about how they're going to ruin the country if everyone were gay. Japan would go to hell. And
I mean, well, yes, I love it. It's like talking with a confused uncle trying to make a point. I love that quote. I featured that on my blog as well. How he said, "Look, if I criticize LGBT people, I know that'll become an enormous fuss. So I don't mean to do that. It's like I don't have any problem with them. I'm just saying.
I'm not racist, but
if it's nothing but same-sex marriages, and I mean men marrying men and women marrying women, this is how he said it. Then the whole country is just going to collapse." It's like they're afraid that recognizing LGBT rights is somehow going to make everybody gay.
Right.
That and the guy that runs like the computer division, or no, he's the head minister of some technology.
Oh, and he has no computer.
I love that.
It's just a perfect embodiment of so much of the country, isn't it? Yeah.
But I brought that up to two of my older and very intelligent but older students that I have, and they said, "Well, I mean, he's never going to get hacked."
No shit. This is what I said. Like Jason, you're a Battlestar Galactica fan, right?
Absolutely.
So this is how Adama survived the original Cylon attack. He had the ultimate cyber security strategy. I think this guy's a genius.
The robot wars will come, and he'll still be
the only one. He'll have all analog lines all over every spaceship.
Well, I tell you, Victor, 5 years ago, if I had told you that your channel not only would be changing, but your main content would be people whispering and listening to barber haircuts, would you believe me?
No.
What a weird turn of events. And Hiko was telling me in the pre-tape that he doesn't quite understand ASMR, and I don't get the tingles.
I don't either. I don't. But it's really made me interested in sound, though. I mean, I go out of my way to buy. I've got all these microphones now, really expensive gear, and I like them. I mean, I got this Rode $400 mic here, and it's great. And I put on my headphones and I listen to what I'm taking. I'm like, wow, that's so cool. I can hear things that. Basically, it gives you superhuman hearing when you use these things.
I'll plug two channels that I listen to. One's called Frivolous Fox, and one's called GB. They're both GB girls.
GB's good,
lie, but I just put it on at night. Sometimes I have a hard time turning off the brain to go to bed, and for a half hour, and that just kind of like my mind kind of just goes, and then I fall asleep. And I don't get the sensations, but I enjoy the quietness, the soft. And so I understand why it's popular, but it's just funny how popular it is.
Yeah, well, it's its own niche thing, just like you have.
Yeah.
right? The Sumo thing. I mean, I saw your channel a couple months ago, 3 or 4 months ago, and you were getting like over 1 million views a month. I was like, oh my God, when did this happen? You know, I mean, that's a lot of views back in the day. I mean, I think when at the height of Give Me a Break Man's popularity, I think I was getting maybe 700,000 or 800,000 views a month.
Yeah. And
that was at the height, you know, and that was anyway, a long time ago.
There was a smaller pond back in those days. So,
it was a much smaller pond, yeah. But what were we talking about? Oh yeah, I don't know how it happened, but I want to ask you one quick question before we get into the Sumo stuff. Behind you, Jason.
Yes.
You've got 3 of the same girl dolls.
Well, they're different. Do you want to see
that's my question. Yeah, that was my question.
All right, I'll get it. Hold on. Talk amongst yourselves.
3 girl dolls. I didn't even notice that.
Because my son collects them. Well, he collects them because I bought them for him. But we don't have those. I guess they're Star Wars or something. We've got all the Marvel characters.
Yes.
So this is Baby Metal. You guys know Baby Metal?
Oh, Baby Metal! Oh my God, really? I can't believe it.
So this is the lead singer.
I've got these. See?
Yeah. So her name is Sue, and she's the one that actually looks different.
Okay, that's Sue. Oh, they're all different characters.
Well, these 2 look very similar. Okay, they're the 2 side singers.
A Yui Metal and Moa Metal.
Yeah, and the dolls are almost identical except which hand they're holding up and some of the accessories. And
where did they go for
the group. They actually just kicked out. Well, they didn't kick out, but they got rid of one of the girls. She, I think, was not doing well health-wise, and they're replacing her, and it's a huge uproar within the Baby Metal community, let me tell you.
You got yours too.
And because they're all over 20 now. Well, no, I think Sue is now 20 or 21, and the other 2 are 19. Yeah, I've got that same Spidey right here.
Yeah. What did you pay for the metal ones and that one?
You really want to know?
I'm just curious. Are they really expensive?
I didn't. Yeah, I paid eBay prices for them. Do you want to know seriously?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm curious. Yeah.
$140 for the set.
What?
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Wow,
$140. These are cheap. These are like $6 or $7 each.
That's Sumo Patreon money right there.
Yeah.
That's why you left them in the box. Why didn't you take them out of the box?
No, my son is his birthday is next Friday, and I'm giving them to him on his birthday.
Nice.
His birthday's next.
Yeah, I have a Darth Vader. I have a few others. I have a John Lennon.
I will admit this though. This is mine though. This one I bought for myself.
There you go. That's cool. I like the Logan.
Wolverine. Logan, right? Yeah. Okay, we're children. I bought these for my son because I know that I would be if I bought them for myself, I would just keep them in the box and never play with them. So if I buy them for my son, I'll force him to open them up and play with them, and that's what he's doing. Yeah, I bought him some for Christmas, and these are for his birthday. Anyway, cool. I was just curious about this. $140, so that's a lot of money.
Yeah, but I mean, now that she's not in the group anymore, that one's only going to go up and up in value.
Oh, cool.
And, they don't make them again. Like they don't keep making them. I think they're somewhat limited in that respect.
Right.
So,
right. Let's get to your channel. It's kicking ass.
Thanks.
Congratulations.
Well, the Sumo show is happening right now. So for the people that don't know, Sumo happens 6 times a year. 3 times in Tokyo and 3 times, 1 time in Nagoya where Victor lives.
And you came out and we went together once.
Yeah, we had a great time.
Like 2 years ago, we had box seats, I think, right?
3 years ago, yeah.
We got box seats, right? We had really good seats. Yeah.
You had really good tickets through a source that you had.
Oh, that's right. That was during the Yakuza connection.
We went with a German guy who dresses up in girls' stuff
and Dai-chan.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it was a good time.
So the closest bus show to me now is Fukuoka. So I went there this year. I might go to Osaka in March. I haven't been in a few years, so it just depends. I've never been to the Kokugikon, so I really want to go there in May.
You gotta come.
Yeah.
So for someone who doesn't know sumo, let's get some things out of the way.
Sure.
Okay. There are 6 bashos a year, is that right?
That's right. Every odd numbered month.
Every odd numbered month. And each basho consists of 15
days.
15 days, right? And it's an elimination, basically an elimination battle.
No, they fight every day, and it's a cumulative number of wins.
Okay. Well, yeah. I had it right in my head, but wrong vocabulary. Okay. So, but yeah, basically the best matches are towards the end of every day.
Right, because they go up the ranks to the highest ranked guys, and they fight at the end of the day. You're correct.
Right. And they're not just fat guys.
They're not just fat guys in diapers smashing into each other. There is sport and strategy and physical fitness and all kinds of things involved. Yes.
Yes. And have you ever seen them training? Have you been to any of their training bouts and training?
I went to a regional thing they had in Shimane one time, and you get to kind of see them sort of working out, if you want to call it that. Obviously, I've watched documentaries and seen behind the scenes stuff.
Cool. The training, yeah.
Yeah, but no, I've never been to a stable when they're actually doing their keiko, their practice.
Oh,
I'd love to.
Really, you should go, because I mean, I've been like 3 times now.
Yeah.
And anytime there's a sumo, for everyone who doesn't know, anytime there's a sumo basho in a certain city, all the sumo wrestlers pick a certain shrine to go to and hang out there and live. I guess they live there during the.
Sure, they have temporary quarters for that 2-week period, and
they practice every morning. They're up at like 6 a.m. or even earlier and practicing, and you can go watch them. It's open to the public.
Back though, like it kind of came out, like late in the piece. Like you been very established as a jet vlogger, and then a movie, talking about movies and stuff like that. Had you been like a closet sumo fan all along, or is this something that came up that you discovered while you were here?
So yeah, I mean, I've told the story a lot, but basically when I first moved to Shimane, I had 5 TV channels, and sumo was one of the few things where you could watch it. My Japanese wasn't very good, so you could hit the button and you can watch it in English.
Yeah.
So I would come
right. They have a bilingual thing here in Japan.
Yeah, and I would get home from work about 4:30, and it was on from 4 to 6.
Sumo Digest.
And so I would watch it in English, and I just got into it. And I went to my first bus show in 2005, and I actually put some sumo matches up on the MyArgonauts channel. The 2 audiences weren't necessarily overlapping, so that's when I started the whole separate channel for just sumo.
Yeah,
right. It's a good idea too.
So who was the yokozuna when you first started following? Was Asashoryu around in those days?
Really?
Yeah, he had just ascended in 2003, and I started watching in late 2004.
Yeah.
Oh, so you missed the whole.
Only one yokozuna for the most part, and then Hakuho, there was 2 for a while, and then recently we had 4, but that didn't last very long. Yeah.
So that's us. I hear. Well, I'll ask you about that.
We just had one retire, which is the big news this week.
Yes. Kiseno
Sato.
Right.
Yeah. The only Japanese.
Only Japanese. Yeah. That's a shame. Big.
It does get it to be a bit like the proverbial, the stereotypical Great White Hope boxing kind of thing. The idea that the hype that goes into any, and the thing with Kiseno Sato as well was, he was good and he was developing, but you always got that sense that they were pushing him ahead a little bit too fast and too hard. Like he was always going to be the yokozuna. Everyone could see that. But everyone was hoping like they were the last champion before him was Takanohana, who was just a freak of nature. He was he was an amazing,
Was it Takanohana? It's been that long.
Yeah,
that's what I forgot.
Yeah.
He was the last Japanese yokozuna before there were a couple of American.
That was like 1992, 93.
No, we had a Japanese yokozuna who retired in 2002.
Who was that?
I believe it was Wakanohana.
Oh, his brother.
His brother. Yeah. So okay, that's right. He was the last one. But even at that time, he was kind of yokozuna for a couple of years. But Takanohana was this legend, for 10 years, who was like this unbeatable guy. And he was a small guy as well. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of like everyone was looking for the next Takanohana to come up, and they thought it might be Kaio, and they thought it might be this guy or that guy, but there was never, including frankly Kiseno Sato. Nobody's actually come up to be like this, mega yokozuna like Takanohana was. And the thing was they had a guy like that. It was Asashoryu, but because he wasn't Japanese and because frankly he had a bit of a bad attitude, but he was an amazing wrestler. I loved Asashoryu. I mean, for all the problems, he would probably still be yokozuna today if he hadn't been kicked out.
He was fierce. He was great to watch. I loved him too. I was sad when he left. And I think Hakuho though. For fans of the sport and who know the sport well, there's just no arguing anymore that he is now the GOAT. Yep. He is the greatest of all time. You can put Chiyono Fuji and some of the other guys up against him, but
I'm sorry.
Chiyono Fuji was amazing.
Asashoryu could, and the thing was, people recognized that Asashoryu was so much stronger than Hakuho, and they felt that when Hakuho became Yokozuna, there was this big controversy that Asashoryu deliberately let him win. Like there's this thing that the tabloids came out with those stories, like he was trying to give a leg up to another Mongolian.
Yeah.
And the thing was, for that time, the only thing that you looked forward to in the Basho, the only meaningful bout, was the final day, Asashoryu versus Hakuho, and those were the mega matches, and those would turn into real serious fights.
Yeah.
So it was like, and when Asashoryu left, I mean, Hakuho himself talked about how sad he was that he didn't really have a rival anymore.
I mean, and that's the thing people will talk about is the lack of meaningful competition that Hakuho has had versus, say, a Chiyonofuji or a Taiho or somebody in the past. And
and probably
I wasn't around back then, and I don't have the history with the sport that a Japanese person might. But
I started watching sumo when Chiyonofuji was just finishing up, so I had the honor of watching him a couple of times before he finished, and when he went up against Takanohana, and that's when I got interested in it because I heard about that match.
Takanohana was like a Johnny's type celebrity. He was like, he was actually like almost like an idol when he came up. I mean, he was young and he wasn't fat.
No, he's great though.
But neither was Chiyonofuji. Chiyonofuji was like a massive muscle.
Yeah.
Amazing.
But maybe one thing. So we're kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but let's jump into it. So for people who are not familiar with sumo, there is this thing about how all of a sudden Kiseno Sato, who's still quite young, right? Is he 30 yet?
And he's Japanese. You should point out that their nationality. I think that's kind of important.
Yeah.
I think he's 30, 31. Yeah.
He just turned 30. So the point is, he's reached the pinnacle of the sport, and all of a sudden he has to retire, and he's basically retiring. He's being forced to retire, basically, right? So maybe you can explain why that is. Why someone?
Oh, sure. Yeah. What happened with Kiseno Sato is he was the second rank of what's called an ozeki for many, many years, and he was very consistent. Never missed a match. Was the Iron Man of sumo. He was runner-up, usually the second best score of his tournament, 6 times out of 11 leading up to his promotion to Yokozuna. So in the 2 years previous, he had always been just there, but never quite enough to win the championship.
Right.
And they finally, he did win a championship. And they said, okay, that plus your past performance instead of having to win 2 in a row, we're going to promote you. Well, this didn't sit well with some fans who said, hey, you're supposed to win 2 championships in a row. That's how Hakuho did it. That's how Haramafuji did it.
Right.
And when what's his face sell the dump truck, the big American guy,
Akibono?
No, I'm not. But before Akibono, like in the 90s, there was the fattest guy ever in sumo.
Konishiki.
Yeah.
Konishiki won 2 in a row, and they
all
was 2 out of 3, and they didn't promote him. So clearly,
So he finally gets to be Yokozuna. His debut tournament as a Yokozuna in March, and he's fighting Terunofuji, who's a big, strong Mongolian, and he has a bout against Haramafuji, who's a very wily, strategic Yokozuna at the time, and he fell off the doyo and he tore his pectoral muscle. So in his very first tournament at the top rank that he's been working for all his life, he has this major injury. He comes back the next day, gets a win, comes back. He has to face Terunofuji on the final day, day 15, to win the tournament.
And he's injured, right?
He's injured. He's got all this bandaging around, and he has to beat him twice because he has to beat him to give him a loss to have them have equal record and then beat him in the playoff. Right. And he does. And the crowd and the whole country went ape shit. So he's finally now won 2 tournaments in a row, and people are like, see, he can do it.
Right.
But he's injured so badly that he enters the next tournament out of Yokozuna Pride, and he only wins like 2 or 3 matches and then pulls out of the tournament. And for the next year and a half, he only completes 1 tournament and gets 10 wins. Every time else, he either sat out the whole tournament or fought 4 or 5 days and then pulled out. And people finally, after 8 of those in a row, which was a record, they finally said, look, you've got to come in this January tournament and show up and win, or you've got to retire. And he lost the first 3 days in a row, and so that was it.
But the other thing, and there were the 2 things. One, he was injured for too long, but the other thing is that there's this kind of weird rule that doesn't apply to the Ozeki, which are basically the rank below Yokozuna, but it applies to the Yokozuna that, if you're not supposed to ever lose matches on consecutive days. So you can be a Yokozuna and be 13-2, but you can't be 2 losses in 2 days. And what always happens, and even with and this is again when the Mongolians came in, they would always say, "Well, I want to keep going." They wouldn't. You're supposed to kind of fake an injury if you lose 2 days in a row. And if you do continue, if heaven forbid you ever lose three times in a row, you basically, it's sort of the custom of the sport that as Yokozuna, even if you're like 20 years old, you have to retire.
Well, there's two things about that, because one, they're not supposed to lose to rank and file wrestlers because they give away this thing called a kinboshi, a gold prize, which is money the Sumo Association has to pay that wrestler. It's like $20,000, whatever that is in yen. And
a lot of money.
The Yokozuna can't be demoted. Once you're a Yokozuna, you can't go down in rank. You either do what you're supposed to do or you retire.
Right.
So
the smart, like so you think of a wrestler. There's a wrestler called Kaio who was basically Ozeki for life. He wrestled till he was like 40 years old, and he was always he from a gaming perspective, he played it the best, didn't he? If someone who could be Yokozuna, he basically sat at a rank where it was okay for him to go down and then come up again, but he never went too high, because if you go too high, you're not allowed to go down again. And he did that, and he stayed in the sport. He had the most. I think Hakuho ended up beating him for the most wins ever in the sport, but he held the record for the most wins ever in sumo without being a Yokozuna, because he just struck managed to hold on for so long. But yeah, it's a tough tradition that the Yokozuna is not allowed to lose. The other thing I remember about Kiseno Sato was he was the nemesis of Asashoryu. So even when he was coming up,
and Hakuho, in a way, he gave Hakuho that famous loss to end his winning streak when he was so close to, the 6
record
in a row. Yeah.
But I remember, I think Asashoryu, who wiped the floor with everybody just for some reason, and he would always hit Kiseno Sato earlier in the tournament, like before, it was when he was still down in the ranks. And there was just something that Asashoryu would always just, he'd kind of choke every time he against Kiseno Sato. That would always be the one loss. And it was kind of like, and you could tell because Asashoryu would get so heated up, you could tell, he would come in like, I'm going to smash this guy this time. He made me look bad last time. And you could tell he was doing himself in because he was getting so worked up about beating Kiseno Sato and Kiseno Sato. But what would always kill me about Kiseno Sato was he always had this pattern where he would be this giant killer. He would beat the Yokozuna and all the Ozeki. And then he'd go drop some matches against some rank and filers at the end and give it away.
And that's why people said he didn't have the mental edge that he needed to get over that hump to win Yusho.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because he could have been remembered as one of the best Ozeki of all time, like you said, Kaio. But instead he became Yokozuna, got this tragic injury, and now he'll forever be remembered as the Yokozuna who couldn't be a Yokozuna,
And I still get the feeling like, he would have made Yokozuna. You still get the feeling there was so many people putting so much stock because he's Japanese and trying to get up there a little bit too soon.
That's right.
He would have gotten there. So, and now they're all looking for the next guy. And again, why look for the next guy? There are these great. Why not just sell out? Of course, I mean, we are the world. There are a lot of great wrestlers out there. Why do you have to put all the great hope in the great Japanese hope?
Yeah. Well, some of the guys coming up in the sport now, Takakeisho, Mitakeumi, Ono Sho, are all Japanese. Even Takayasu, the Ozeki, who I think will probably become a Yokozuna next, is half Filipino, half Japanese, and the Japanese really do embrace him. So the only person who could maybe become a Yokozuna, but I don't think he will, is Tochinoshin. And he's, of course, from the country of Georgia in Europe. So, I think we really will have a Japanese Yokozuna, maybe not in 2019, but probably by the Olympics, let's say.
Yeah. But I mean, for me, I also really got into sumo for a time. I must admit, I haven't gotten into it as much lately, but there was a time for about 10 years that I would go to every basho in Tokyo. And particularly when the Mongols were coming up. So when I first came,
I didn't know that about you.
Yeah, even before, before I came to Japan on this trip from 1998. So when I was first in Japan and when I first watched sumo, I think maybe one of the first matches I watched, there was only one Mongolian in the entire competition called Kyokushuzan. He was like the original Mongolian, and what I loved about him, so sumo wrestling is based on Turkish wrestling. It's based basically from like ancient Greek times, like the Trojans and so on, back thousands of years ago used to do basically sumo wrestling. And, as a result, the Mongolians and, the Japanese have basically the sport like just expanded east. So the Mongols have a sport that's practically the same rules as sumo, bigger ring and everything, but the same basic principles. But, where Japanese sumo has like 150 recognized moves or something, the Mongolian wrestling has like 400 recognized moves. So what would happen is these Mongols who are trained in Mongolian wrestling would come out and they've got a repertoire of moves that the Japanese don't have that are legal in sumo. So what would always happen with Kyokushuzan was he was never good enough to be like an ozeki, but he was in the makunochi, and he would just pull these crazy moves, and people would see it like, what the hell was that? Like he'd do these trips, or he'd like swish around and flip a guy over, and people are like, that's not how you're supposed to do sumo, but it was legal. I loved, he was so entertaining, and when you combine the smarts and the sort of Mongolian skill, when other Mongols followed him, and then Asashori popped out of nowhere, a guy who was actually tough and had the skills, you could see. I mean, I was like, oh man, a Mongol's going to come in here and clean up. I was a huge Kyokushin fan, and I could see it was happening. And I followed Asashori from when he was in Juryo. I saw him in Juryo, and I mean, he used to go after Akebono. I remember his first match against Akebono in his first time in the Makunochi. So Akebono was a huge American, Hawaiian, Samoan.
He is huge.
He was
like,
huge.
Like 500 pounds or some crazy stuff, and agile. And he did K1. And this little Mongolian.
He sucked at K1 though.
He sucked at it, but he did it. Yeah. But the skinny little short Mongolian guy,
what was his name again? The Mongolian.
Mongolian Asashori.
Asashori.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Asashori against Akebono, right?
I remember he had just gotten promoted into the top division, and it was like on the second day he had to face off against this enormous American Yokozuna. And I remember he went straight for the guy's knee, and he basically went to go and trip his knee, like on the touchy eye. He just sort of flipped around and grabbed his knee and yanked it out. And he basically, and he didn't win. He kept his footing and he lost. But I was like, oh my god, normally people get intimidated by a Yokozuna, right? They sort of hold their ground and then they get smashed. But he went and just attacked the guy, but he went to attack and trip him up.
Yeah,
I was like, this guy's just fearless. I was like, that guy's going to be cool. And he was, I still think, for all of his many, many problems, he's still like the most exciting. And hell, I'd bet $1 that if he had not been kicked out, he would have had more wins. He would have chalked up more wins than Hakuho.
He's still the only Yokozuna that's ever won all 6 basho in a year, in a calendar year.
Oh, really? That is amazing.
But people hated him so much. I mean, he was so the establishment. It was mutual.
So dominant before Hakuho came along.
Yeah, I mean,
he was sumo for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. Jason, could you I think this is kind of interesting for people who are, especially foreigners here. Could you explain the rules about foreigners in sumo stables and explain what a stable is for the people who?
Sure.
So I think that's pretty interesting.
Is the group of wrestlers, and they have an oyakata, a coach, who's usually a former wrestler. Maybe not a yokozuna. They're often not. Koto Oshu, for instance, was an ozeki who now has his own stable. Kiseno Sato will have his own stable soon. They have to wait a year after they retire before they can start their own stable. And so it's a group of wrestlers, and they're from young guys. You can be as early as graduating junior high school and start sumo in Japan. So you can be 16,
14 years old, 15?
Yeah, something like that. But a lot of them come out of college or after they graduate high school. And so they're young guys up to the veterans, and they're only allowed to have one foreign-born rikishi.
Oh, is it only one? I thought it was 2.
One.
So baseball, it's 2.
Anytime you see a stable that's got more than one, it's because there's been a merger at some point. Or they've one sumo has absorbed another, or this oyakata passed away, so now these guys go join this stable, and then they're allowed to have more than one if it's
really
like that. Isn't there? I can't remember where they're all settled on this, but there was a time when basically, particularly for like the Asian or developing country wrestlers, they would get around the rule, although it's more than getting around the rule, by actually pretty much pressuring and forcing them to adopt Japanese citizenship. But then there were so many like Asian wrestlers that had Japanese citizenship. I think that the Sumo Association said, we don't care if you're a Japanese citizen, we're going to do the quota by birth.
I don't think Japanese citizenship
is relevant anymore.
Yeah. And there aren't that many people. The top of the sport has been dominated by Mongolians. And we've had an Estonian, Baruto. We've had a guy from Bulgaria, Koto Oshu. We've got Tochinoshin. So we have white guys. And we used to have Americans. Before
that, it was the Samoans and Hawaiians?
Yeah, we haven't had any Samoans or Hawaiians in a while. We do have a guy from Texas that's making his way up. He's half Japanese.
He's half what?
He's half black, half Japanese. His name is Waka Ichiro. We had a Canadian for a little while, but he couldn't tough it out. He went back to Canada.
Who's that Czech guy? There's a really skinny guy from Czechoslovakia who was quite good looking, and he did pretty well. What happened to him?
He went up to the Makuuchi. Yeah, he made it into the rank and file. So yeah, I mean, there's been a few Russians,
It's
but
not actually.
there aren't that many people.
Wakaichiro has a full afro.
Wakichiro, yeah, when he does.
My God.
Yeah.
Really? I'm looking at a video right now. I'm on the side. Full afro. I've never seen a sumo wrestler. That's almost like a manga character.
Yeah. Well, they do have to grow their hair out for that chonmage, and people don't realize like how sort of 80s rock and roll their hair is when they let it down. But it's very White Snake when they don't have it.
I'm never gonna look at sumo the same again.
So it's only one sumo wrestler per stable, but in baseball, I think it's 2 baseball players.
No.
Do you know anything about that?
No.
Do you know about how many foreigners are allowed in other sports, Japanese sports? Do you know anything about that?
No, I hadn't heard about other limits like soccer and baseball and stuff.
I wonder about that. I don't know about soccer, but I think in baseball, Hiko, do you know? I think in baseball it's 2.
I don't know. I know that sumo brought in some, and I was outraged that they stopped recognizing citizenship, which I thought was pretty outrageous given the trouble that some of the. I mean, it's not a small thing. It's not a loophole to change your citizenship to a country that doesn't recognize dual citizenship. So the fact that they stopped recognizing that just showed. But the problem was that in the old days, sumo was something that poor families would send one of their 10 children away because they can't afford to raise them, and they'd basically send them to these abusive, sort of harsh sort of sumo stable environments where they'd get sort of beaten up and turn into real men, and basically being an absolute slave to the senior sumo wrestlers in the hope that one day they'd become a famous wrestler and could send some money home to the farm. That was like the traditional. It was they all came from poverty. And it was a real sort of a tough life. And it was the only, during the Meiji period, Meiji hated traditional Japanese culture, and he banned the top knots and he banned Japanese dress. And sumo was the only state-backed institution that was allowed an exception to the rules on westernizing.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So it was kind of like, basically, it's something it was born out of in a way. Sumo was backed by Japanese poverty in a way. It was basically something that poor families would send their kids away to go and have the chance at a sumo wrestler. So I think what the problem that sumo ran into in Japan was Japan got too wealthy and comfortable. The kids would rather play Game Boys than be sent to a sumo stable and wipe someone's ass. So this is also kind of natural.
And Mongolians are much poorer.
Frankly, yes.
Yeah.
I think they still have that thing that Hiko's talking about where, when you come from a poor country, you see this with, I mean, and I don't mean this in any disparaging way, but I work at a school now that has 12 foreign teachers, and the Philippine foreign teachers who are from the Philippines, they all send money home to their families. And I know they're all supporting like larger families back in the Philippines with the money they make here in Japan. And I think from the Mongolian wrestlers, did you guys see that piece they just did on Haramafuji on TV the other day? So he's opened a whole school called like the Haramafuji School, and he's making them learn in the Japanese style. And he's the principal, and he stands there, and they have to come in and bow and say "Ohayo gozaimasu" in Japanese to him. And and he's millions of dollars. I don't know how they did the translation, the money, but on this school, and he really wants Mongolian kids to grow up and learn Japanese and be more powerful on the world stage, I guess. And this is
that's great.
I think, as I understand as well, like Mongol wrestling is a bit like sumo wrestling in Japan. It's again, in any country, it's like kids from rich families generally don't go on to become like wrestlers in any country.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of like you do know that apparently Asashoryu's dad and Hakuho's dad are like legendary Mongol grand champions.
Right.
They had a huge rivalry. So it was kind of funny that these were like really high-ranking kids, like legacy kids of these.
Wow.
Sort of,
Wow.
I think Hakuho's father won a medal in one of the Olympics.
Yeah, and Asashoryu's brothers were all like pro wrestlers in Japan. Like the whole family sort of did different types of wrestling, and they're all quite successful.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. You've got basically, Japan doesn't have young, hungry, trying to better their lives people that come into the stable.
Hungry is a key word. I think you got to be hungry to win it.
That's kind of it. And it's a big it's a huge lifestyle sacrifice and commitment to join a sumo stable. But I remember what the Sumo Association thought the crisis was. They realized about 10 years ago that the only new people coming into sumo stables were foreigners. Like Japanese just weren't coming in anymore.
Yeah.
And they thought that they'd fix the problem by banning foreigners. You know, that's not the problem.
The only people who really wanted to do it.
I mean, they kind of
Well, I
punching
think
them.
part of it is, like I teach, all the way down to 7th grade in junior high, and if you talk to the kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? Especially if you ask Shogak, say, "Oh, I want to be a professional baseball player." Sure, boys are still going. I want to be
YouTuber,
a soccer player. Maybe Kei Nishikori, I want to be a tennis player, and so on. But none of them say I want to be a sumo wrestler because the kids don't watch it. It's on from 4 to 6 p.m.
That's true. Yeah.
Cool. Oh, my grandfather likes sumo. They'll tell me if I say, "Hey, do you like sumo?" I love sumo. No, I don't know sumo, Jason. What are you talking about? So I just think they make it awkward. Nobody has a poster of, Kiseno Sato on their wall. They all have a picture of a baseball player or a soccer player or some cool person, a Johnny's Idol or something. So, yeah, I don't know. Sumo's got that. It's when you watch the audience, it's all old people for the most part, other than foreigners.
But what kills me is,
it really is.
That, sumo has been waiting for the next idol, for the next Takanohana, for the next Chiyono Fuji to come along that they could use as the poster child for the sport. And that's what they put all the eggs in the basket on Kiseno Sato. And what kills me is that they don't realize that they have these superstars. It's just that they're not Japanese. And if they just stop for a minute and just looked at them as being really good wrestlers, they have them.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that are being the barrier, the hindrance to themselves, and they don't realize. So that aspect of it kills me, but it's such a great sport. I mean, I remember when I was in New Zealand and we got cable TV for the first time, and I was watching ESPN. I saw monster truck racing for the first time,
right.
And I just thought, wow, this is awesome. It's like 3 seconds long. It's just noise and big, powerful trucks and mud, and this is awesome. And I realized straight away when I came to Japan, I'm looking at sumo wrestling, and I'm like, this is so awesome. And I'm realizing this is like a human version of monster trucks, basically. I mean, it's really easy. You can show it to anybody and they instantly understand. I mean, there's a lot of nuance to it, but anyone can basically show up and get the grasp of it. It's a great sport.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's fairly simple to understand.
Yeah.
And that's the reason, that's the reason my channel has taken off so much, is because so many of the emails I get are people from Mongolia, people from Georgia, people from America.
Really?
I was in the military and I used to watch sumo. Oh, I've been to Japan and I watched it one time. And YouTube now is a place where you can go, and my coverage is in English. And Japanese coverage exists on YouTube and stuff, but it's so indecipherable for many people that my coverage is much more accessible, I think, for people. And a lot of people email me and say, "Hey, I really like your commentary. It's like watching with a friend. You're really easygoing, blah, 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 blah." And so if you're interested in sumo, try it and watch more than one. I had a video blow up that it's currently got 2.5 million views of Tochinoshin fighting and winning his championship. And a lot of people leave dumb comments on that. I can't believe I'm watching this. And so, the people that come to that video and then look at the rest of the channel and have tried it, many of them have said, "Hey, I would have never thought I would like this, but now I'm in love with sumo. I can't wait for the next basho, etc."
I went to a basho in Tokyo years and years ago, and I was lucky enough that I caught a match between Haruma Fuji, who at that time was still called Ama. He was under his old wrestling name.
Right.
And he was this Russian guy who was also quite good, but I think he got kicked out for a bunch of
smoking marijuana?
Something, yeah.
Something like that. But there was this match where they were sort of two young, up-and-coming, really good, and basically Ama did this uchari. He did basically, it was like a power slam WWF move. He was basically getting pushed out to the edge of the ring, and at the last moment, he just flipped this guy and power slammed him over. It was the most awesome thing, and I happened to be hand-holding the camera, and when he flipped him over, and everyone jumped up at the same time, and the whole kokugi kind of exploded. But also, because I was holding the camera by hand, what happened, like the camera started shaking, and all the noise, all the sound maxed out, so the video came out like really awesome. It looked like there was an earthquake when he won. And it was one of my best videos for a long time, and people were saying, "Oh my god, that's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I want to go watch sumo now." But it's like that. There's always stuff like that happening.
Yeah. If you're lucky.
It's a lot of fun, and my community is really good, actually. I have very few trolls. You get a little bit of nationalism every now and then, but other than that, people are really respectful. They help the new people learn about sumo, and
that's good.
I get 10, 15,000 views in a day now on some big matches.
And you know what? I was going to say before, I mean, in a way, it's great that there's this niche open for you for you to go and basically make your own, and it gives you the access, to be the sumo guy, which is great, and that's the role that you're fulfilling. But at the same time, it's also so frustrating that for a government, for the Japanese government, trying to export its culture and trying to promote. I mean, Japan's kind of achieved 30 million tourists in spite of itself. You know what I mean? All the things that NHK could just do on its own with this, to use this to promote Japan, to make it more easily accessible. And it's because they make it so inaccessible that it's great that you have the opportunity. But at the same time, it's like, why isn't anyone, realizing that?
They already have. They pay someone to do the English play-by-play every day for 2 hours. All they have to do is chop up the matches and put them on YouTube themselves and start an NHK Sumo channel, and I'd be, quote unquote, out of business.
You know what? And I don't want to give anyone. I'm glad that you've got the market on this, but at the same time, if I was like, seriously, go and pay some UFC commentators or something, and do a fast cut up, highlights, which you could do in 15 minutes, because that's what they used to do, with some good commentary, with some professional, like jazzy commentary, and how it would take over the world. It really would.
All the rights to the internet to this thing called Abama TV, ABEMA.
Abema TV. They say Abema.
They are over the top with the graphics, and they have all these excited commentators. But you try to watch that from any country other than Japan, and what my viewers tell me is it's blocked. So
why would you? I mean, honestly, who cares about?
The only thing out there that you can get is NHK World do a summary show. Yeah. But guess what time it comes on in Japan time after the bus show ends at 6 p.m. every day?
Midnight, 12:30,
1:30 a.m.
1:30.
It takes them that long to put together an edited 30-minute highlight reel.
Jesus. And
I've got my videos up 2 hours after 6 p.m., most of the night.
I like to joke sometimes, Japanese politics but this is kind of similar to what I say about Japanese politics, which is when you look at the opposition parties, which, you see an incompetent government and you think it's just there to take, and it feels like Brewster's Millions. And no, I realize now Brewster's Millions is so old that most people don't understand, but, Brewster's Millions, the movie where,
I know every movie.
48. I know you do. So he's just like, it's like they're trying to lose. It's like they've been given $48 million and they have to lose it and have nothing to show for it within a week, right? It feels like they're taking a challenge to screw it up as badly as possible sometimes.
Now I'm interested. Let me ask you guys a question,
please.
You're both over 40. Dad,
very much.
So you have other responsibilities other than to yourselves. How, in 2018, the just completed calendar year, how many times did you go to a Japanese cinema and watch a movie, and what movie did you see?
Wow.
So, go ahead,
Victor.
I went. My wife forgives me for these. She's interested also in the. Okay, we went to go see Black Panther.
Okay, that's good.
And we saw Avengers, of course, Infinity War, and we saw Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Oh, okay, so the 3 Marvel movies.
The 3 Marvel movies, that's all we see. And everything else I buy on DVD or Blu-ray.
Okay. We haven't gotten Aquaman. People don't realize that we don't get the movies at the same time. Like,
well, we do some of them. Like, we get the Marvel movies. No, well, actually, we don't. Not all of them. We got Infinity War. Everything else.
We haven't gotten Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse yet.
Yes. I know. Coming out in March 8th, I think.
Yeah, stuff like that.
So, I heard it's great. Yeah.
Anything?
Yeah. And I'm the wrong guy to ask. I've been to go see a Yokai Watch movie.
Oh, okay.
I went. That reminds me. I did go with my son to see a train movie. We saw an anime movie that anime characters talk about all the trains in Japan.
Okay.
Nice.
And my wife fell asleep.
The number 1 movie at the Japanese box office in 2018. Can either of you guess?
Kimi no Na? Isn't it? Well,
no, that was last year.
What was it? What did you say?
Not Kimi no Na. That was last year.
Oh no, yeah, that was a year ago. Okay. That was 2017.
Okay.
Conan the detective,
really
movie, yeah. Number 3, Bohemian Rhapsody, the Queen movie.
Really? Oh, my students love that. All my students have gone to see that.
Huge here.
Yeah, that's
so. Yeah, Black Panther and stuff way down the list here.
Black Panther. I went to the movie theater. I was surprised at how empty it was. Infinity War 2.
So I go see everything still. Glass just opened, the sequel to Unbreakable and Split.
Right.
In Split, you really need to see it. But it didn't open near me. See, like it didn't open locally. I have to go like an hour away to see it. So maybe next weekend when Sumo finishes.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Meg,
I'm dependent on Netflix now.
Meg is already on Blu-ray, so
Hiko's face double, Jason Statham, fighting a big shark.
Oh, you know what? Knowing that I wouldn't watch that, all I did was I skipped straight to the everything wrong with of that, which and that's a fun video. I mean, if you've got no intention of watching the Meg, just watch the everything wrong with it. There's actually, if you want to see some, I love that whole series, and I'm very careful to try not to watch movies that I intend to watch, or that I'll stick to ones that I have watched, or movies I don't intend to watch. The reviews on CinemaSins of I think the Fast and the Furious 6 is like one of the funniest videos I've seen in like the last 2 years. Like, and you don't trust me, you don't have to watch the movie, just watch the.
I've seen all those. I enjoy them.
Yeah,
I mean, the sin counter breaks halfway through and the guy starts screaming. It's actually
number 6. I'll take that out right now. Yeah, everything wrong with Fast and Furious 6. Okay.
Fast and the Furious 6 on.
What is your son into then, movie anime wise, Hiko?
What am I into?
No, what is your son into? He's not into movies?
He's just he's just transitioning from, he's been all Yokai Watch, now transitioning to Pokemon. Now he's just getting into Pokemon. Probably Conan will come in a couple of years, so
Yeah,
is he done with Kamen Rider? Or?
Sorry?
Is he finished with Kamen Rider?
He never really got into Kamen Rider.
Oh, really?
A couple of years.
My son's kind of getting into that now.
Oh, yeah.
And he likes the big thing they're coming out this year. There's 3 of them in 2019: Dumbo, Aladdin, and Lion King live action movies.
Right.
So
Aladdin, that's right. I forgot about that. I'm interested in Aladdin. I can't imagine Will Smith as a genie.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, Will Smith is obviously a very good actor, and it's hard not to like him when you actually see him. But I can't get excited about going to a Will Smith movie for some reason. I don't know.
I'm interested in the Lion King just because John Oliver is going to be the bird.
Yeah, they got some great voices lined up. Voice talent.
I think Beyonce's in there too, right?
Yep, Beyonce is going to be solid.
That's going to be amazing.
Yeah. So, and then we have Star Wars, finally, the number 9 coming out at the end of the year. So,
I think that the Star Wars fan community, of which I'm the basic core demographic, I've got like hundreds of Star Wars figures. I was the kid who had all the Star Wars toys and stuff like that, and was hardcore into the original.
Where are they now?
They're in Australia. I mean, I've given some of them away. They're falling apart, but I've still got them. But yeah, I appreciate with the prequels, there was so much hate for them. And what I think the thing about the Star Wars prequels and the hate for them is that you've got people, basically Gen Xers and so on, people like us, who don't realize that the excitement and love that we had for the original movies was based on the fact that we were 7 years old at the time that we were watching it, and the expectation that we were going to get the same level of excitement as a 7-year-old watching a special effects movie that had never been made before. I think everyone was too harsh. My son watched the prequels, and when he watched the first 6 movies, like all in a row, and I showed him all the first 6 movies,
in chronological order. I mean.
No, because I'm a purist. I did 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3.
Really?
The funny thing about that was my son, when I asked him, okay, now you've seen all the movies, which one do you want to watch again? He wanted to watch Attack of the Clones.
Wow.
And I realized, because I had the son, that I ended up watching the prequels on rotation. And you know what? They're actually, I mean, Lucas crammed a lot into them, and we know what all the critiques of how bad how he messed it up. But there's a lot of stuff in there, and it's actually. People were too harsh on it, and I think it's the same with the postquels. Let them make new movies, and this idea that we're holding them up. People hating on Jar Jar. We had Ewoks, and we forgave Ewoks.
Well, I think you can see from behind me. Yeah, I've seen a Star Wars movie or 2 in my time.
I know that,
and I honest, hand to God, the only Star Wars movie I will never own on Blu-ray, and I decided I'm not going to buy it, is Solo. It was really not very good.
Really?
Really disappointed.
I've been wondering when I should check.
You got the poster behind you. I'm waiting for it to come on.
There's parts of it I liked, and I will rent it one time again and watch it for, to see it again. But I won't ever own it, and it's just not one that I want to go to.
Okay, well, don't spoil it, because I am planning to watch it, and
I haven't seen it either.
So my expectations are low. For that said, what's the other one? Not the Star Wars story one that came out.
The Rogue One.
Rogue One. Loved Rogue One.
I liked it. I saw it too. I liked it.
Yeah.
So I was hoping that this might come out and be like Rogue One-ish, but everything I read says it's not. When I was a kid, you want to know how much of a Star Wars fan I was? I watched all the Ewoks movies. I watched the Caravan of Courage. I watched the, and those are terrible.
I did not even know there were Ewok movies.
Really. Ewok spin-off movies.
Well, now they're actually doing Jon Favreau, who directed Swingers and Iron Man.
He's great, yeah.
A Mandalorian TV show that's going to be on the new Disney.
Yes, I heard about that. Yeah.
And it looks fantastic. The cast and the people he has in it. So that I'm very eager to watch. I don't mind the spin-offs.
Yeah.
I hope that J.J. Abrams, in directing Episode 9 really ties everything, and we have a satisfying conclusion to the Skywalker saga, if you want to call it that. And I'm really looking forward to that movie.
Snoke. Well, what the hell with Snoke? They keep doing this. They built up these Darth Maul. They built up these awesome villains, and then they just do nothing with them.
Well, I think they want Kylo Ren to be the central villain, so we'll see how he evolves in the new one.
I must
Carrie Fisher, because she's still alive in the movie, but she passed away, of course, in real life, and it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah. No, I remain optimistic, and at the end of the day, and I think we also have to be fair that they're trying to make a new movie and give them a chance. I think that's the other thing. I think there's a lot of people aren't giving them a proper chance. I'm psyched about Episode 9, and I'm also psyched about the spin-offs.
But I got to say, as much as I want to see Episode 9, and maybe you two haven't seen it yet. Well, no, I think Victor said he'd seen it. I'm way hyped to see Endgame, the new Avengers movie, and see how they respond.
I can't get into the. There's too much for me. I like Deadpool. I like the odd superhero movie, but it's just gotten too much.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Ant-Man and the Wasp. It was a lot better than I thought it would be. I wasn't that excited to see it, but it was.
Did you watch all the way to the end?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting to see the way, and now in the new trailer,
all connected. Now you see. Now we completely understand the new trailer.
Right.
It makes complete. He's great. Yeah. I didn't used to like him, and now I really like him.
Yeah, he's fun.
I'm having a lot of fun with those. My son likes them too. He knows all the characters. Yeah, it's amazing.
So superficially, as someone who doesn't, who's kind of checked out of trying to keep up with all the movies, it does. When I was I've never been a hardcore comics guy, but when I was a kid, there were the Transformers comics, and there were comics that I would, and I remember when you could get a $2 Marvel comic, even in Singapore,
I remember 50-cent days, but
50, whatever, it feels a bit like. Maybe it makes sense. They've almost literally gone from the sort of cheap throwaway connected universe of the actual comics to actually doing it through movies instead of comics almost. Like they've just gone nuts putting all these things out.
I will say this, Hiko. If you only watch one Marvel movie for the next 2 years, you owe it to yourself to see Black Panther. It is so good. It is so important for representation and just all those other cultural things, which is why it made $700 million in America. And it is the women in it are amazing. The characters,
the women in it are amazing.
The villain is amazing.
Really cool villain.
My favorite superhero movie of the past couple of years, hands down.
Okay, I will watch that, and it's actually that is one I'm interested in watching because of the positive.
To see that one.
Okay. What's funny about that is Wakanda, the nation, the imaginary fictitious country of Wakanda. Has had a policy until that movie, until just very recently, of not allowing any immigrants or foreigners in. And so some hard-right, alt-right people grabbed onto that fact and made it, see, America should be like Wakanda, not let anyone in. We have to stop immigration. But of course, at the end of the movie, Wakanda changes its position and says, we've been wrong all these years.
That's right.
And we've got to let people in. We've got to share our wealth with the world. It was just hilarious.
People that saw Avatar and wanted to go to Pandora. There are reports that travel agents got calls from people saying, "I'd like to book a trip to see Wakanda in Africa. Can we go there?" They didn't realize it's a fictitious place.
Really? I don't know, man. I think I would disagree about Black Panther. I mean, it's a great movie, but if you're only going to see one.
Because you can't see Infinity War unless you've seen a bunch of the other ones.
That's kind of true.
It stands alone by itself as its own.
No, I guess you're right. I mean, to really enjoy Infinity War, you got to see like 5 or 6 movies.
Yeah. That's the problem. That's the problem. I was on holiday in Phuket with my nieces, and they had Infinity War, and I watched it, and I get it. Well, I get that it was some sort of like apocalypse with all of these people having like cameos and getting wiped out. But yeah, so basically, even if I see the movies like that are now set before that, it's just going to be kind of a waste of time.
But the Guardians of the Galaxy movies were both really good. They were a lot of fun.
They weren't. The first one was really good, and the second one I fell asleep. I couldn't.
I enjoyed both of them quite a bit.
The second one I couldn't. I really liked the idea, but I found when it started getting into the dad stuff, it kind of lost the plot.
Yeah, I wasn't that interested in the dad stuff, but
the first one was good all the way through. The second one.
No, okay, I'll give you that. Actually, the climax fight there was not that interesting.
Let me ask you one other question.
Yeah.
So in my first 50 trips around the sun thing in 1969, the huge event of that year was man landing on the moon. Okay. And I made the comment in that movie, and I like to ask people that single achievement of mankind, leaving Earth and landing on the moon, stepping out, and coming back alive, is the greatest achievement of humankind in modern history. Do you agree with that, or can you think of something more amazing, say, in the past 100?
No, I think it was amazing that they could figure out the spaceships and all the logistics of getting a spaceship to the moon successfully and getting them back alive. Yeah. I think that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard for anything to compete with.
Okay, I'm a space geek, and my entire goal in life was to go to America, become American, and join the American space program, and become an astronaut as a kid.
Awesome.
And I never did it, obviously. Although now I'm hoping
time.
Well, I'm hoping it'll be achievable with what suddenly is happening in the last few years.
Go with Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Or Jeff.
So
Virgin Islands.
As a single inspirational event, sort of showcasing human civilization and development, I'd say probably as a single boom, like that impacts everybody and sort of brings the world together. A photo of the planet, and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I'd say that's probably the biggest single impact, like for a single day event. But I would say probably the thing was, if it really was that significant for human civilization, we would have kept building up there, right? We wouldn't have just come back and forgotten about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Which has been a huge disappointment.
Because it was fake. The whole thing was fake.
That's true. That's true. So from that perspective, I think if you consider within our lifetimes what's been the most significant thing that's transformed our world, I think it has to be the internet.
Yeah.
The internet's like the telegraph, right? It's like the phone. It's something. It's infrastructure. So it becomes, people accept it as normal, pretty quickly. But when you think about it's still weird even for me to think. When I entered university, the internet didn't exist. It only came into existence. Netscape only came out halfway through my 5-year degree. When we came to Japan, there was no YouTube. YouTube popped up in 2005. Can you even imagine a world and how it's changed everything about the world?
No, I know. No, I tell my kids all the time, in my classes, I used to have encyclopedias,
books,
and
to go to fucking libraries,
and type things on a typewriter and white out, and
But the question was, what's the most impressive, not influential? I would agree with you that the internet is much more influential, but when it comes to an impressive, I think we could rebuild the internet, but getting a man on the moon again, that's
as a positive, high impact event. Certainly, landing on the moon. If you'd say any sort of, of course, landing on the moon was before I was born. In my lifetime, there was the Challenger explosion, the Berlin Wall, and 9/11. And you know what? I'd have to say 9/11 is probably the most impactful event in my life, just 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
And that's including, going through the earthquake and everything here. That was insane. I mean, you talk about that day that you remember where you were and what you were doing for that whole day.
Yeah, for our age, yeah.
For our age, it's that. So, I mean,
for me, it was when R. Kelly peed on that girl. It ruined my life, basically.
I was on a bus traveling.
And now Sony dropped him. I'm really upset. No, you're right. But I mean, I think we're being a little small-minded, because I think if you think about civilization, probably much more important than those things are getting rid of smallpox or polio or clean water or something.
The internet is more significant than getting rid of smallpox, without question.
Yeah,
because we're going to get rid of every disease in the future is going to be directly or indirectly linked to having the internet. Every technology
in the future, but a lot of those smallpox was cured
Yeah,
or we got rid of it before the internet.
But everything that was done before the internet was somebody worked really hard or got really lucky, like with constantly experimenting, trying out things. You know, the way that the internet has networked humanity has been able to like group, you know, organize scientific research, technological development. That the cycles of technology have just gone insane, especially in the last 5 or 10 years, like compared to 20 years ago before the internet. You know, technology would progress and we'd all be impressed by it. But right now, technologically,
I guess the internet is a speed booster for civilization.
Yeah, I think it's actually transforming us faster than we can.
You have to also say that for you both, for your children, the world they're going to grow up in is so fundamentally different than the world you and I grew up in.
Yeah.
And the interconnected and the access to information at just touching. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, my son is 4 years old. He can use a smartphone. So can my daughter. She can grab my wife's smartphone and put on Anpan on Hulu. I mean, by herself. Crazy. She's not even 2 years old yet.
But if you're a kid growing up in the 70s or the 80s and you'd watch like E.T. or whatever, something like that, you could reasonably still assume that 10 years from now you'd be in a world that would be fairly recognizable in terms of jobs, in terms of, you know, people still pick up phones, people would still, you know, the things that you'd see in movies from the 80s would still be not look dated in the 90s. But the way things are right now, I think movies being made right now at 10 years from now are going to look completely dated. I mean, so I work in a technology company and I've got a son who's 9 years old and I'm already starting to think, so what should he be learning? And, you know,
I don't think porn is technology just because you got good cameras. But go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, but I'm thinking like everyone talks about if people should learn programming. But here's the thing. I think AI is finally going to happen and nobody's going to need to program anymore. Like we're going to have to figure out what to do. Yeah. So I think this is an awesome, exciting time. And it's all.
No, it is. It's an amazing time to be alive. And as a history teacher, to try to get my students interested in this old stuff that happened long ago, it's a challenge. And,
yeah, I can imagine.
You know, but
what areas do you like to focus on when you teach? What areas of history excite you the most?
Well, I teach at an IB school, so International Baccalaureate. So all the kids, even though they're Japanese, study everything in English.
Yeah, cool.
So curriculum for them to be able to graduate high school in Japan dictates that they learn certain things. So even though I would like to teach them about Martin Luther King and civil rights and Gandhi, and that's of personal interest to me, I do have to teach them more about World War II. And we study, of course, you know, from the Industrial Revolution to World War II in that time frame. And then, of course, Japan's recovery from World War II. But we also have a course, like an elective, if they choose the higher course, and the kids have chosen this year to learn about Vietnam and the Silk Road.
Well, they get to choose?
Yeah. There's 18 topics they can choose from.
Well, the Silk Road would be cool.
Yeah, and the Genpei War, if you've ever heard of that, which is a medieval Japan thing where they changed from an emperor-based system and the Heian period to the shogunate. The Kamakura Bakufu came into power.
That sounds like a Star Wars episode.
So I don't know anything about that. So I'm having to read books and learn and
that's cool.
Teach them. And it's really cool. Yeah, I'm really enjoying my new job a lot at this school.
You have Netflix, right? You see Yeah, there's a great documentary series about the Vietnam War. That's like the best, one of the best documentary series I've seen on anything ever.
Ken Burns thing. I'm about halfway through it.
Isn't it incredible?
It is amazing.
I think you'd be fully prepped after you watched that.
I was so mad that Netflix got that because I paid like $60 to get it when it first came out on iTunes.
Oh, really?
Because I knew I needed to see it, and like 3 months later, it's like, oh, here it is on Netflix for free. You know, I pay for Netflix, but still,
right.
It's absolutely incredible. You think about how modern history should be recorded for like permanent history.
Yeah,
like, that just shows how dramatically different history, you know, in the future is going to be. Like the way that, you know, how difficult it is to put together histories of the 19th century. You know, letters and newspaper articles.
Yeah,
but you look at what they could do with the Vietnam War, and then you think about what they're going to be able to do with history after that as well. Like that depth. It's amazing.
It's an interesting thing, too, because I'm teaching Japanese kids primarily. We have a few kids that are half or returnees, but the other day in our history textbook, they were talking about we're studying Castro in Cuba, and it talked about the exodus of Cubans to Florida. And I'm like, do you guys even know what Exodus means? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, okay, well, you know Moses, right? And they're like, Jason, no, we don't know who Moses is. And I'm like, okay, well, the Bible, you know, there's the old part and the new part, and the new part's about Jesus, and the old part and the guy and the pyramids and the Pharaoh and the frogs. And, you know, I'm trying to do the whole like new Old Testament.
Bible in 30 seconds. It's easy.
To explain the word Exodus. And then, you know, I get caught up in these and they're like, Jason, you know, just tell us what the word means. We don't want 3 minutes on, you know. And I just get so excited because I love talking about all that stuff. But yeah, it's really the cultural stuff that they don't get. Yeah, because they're not, you know, American or whatever. And the textbooks are written for English speakers.
Oh.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like a challenge, but yeah.
Yeah, it's fun.
Well, cool. Hey, you know, Hiko's got his new show. Well, not new, but he's doing something new with his new show. He's splitting up his new show into little segments that are easier to digest. Is that true?
Yeah, I became aware that as much as easy it is doing a weekly 1 hour vlog just talking about the news this week, and I've got a great following on that. I mean, the people who follow that are awesome. I realize myself when I have been trying to watch more TV lately, or more YouTube lately, and that's partly why I developed this. And you know, as I've been watching more videos, I realize that when you're trying to watch lots of videos, you have a bias towards watching shorter videos. You don't want to get stuck on a 1.5 hour video. It can be fun for the live stream, but to watch a recorded 1 hour video feels like a bit of a commitment. It's nice if you're vacuuming or doing something else, but it's not so great if you're, focused in front of the computer. So I realized I've got a lot of good content there, which I could just cut out and have the standalone segments for people who are interested. So I'm experimenting with that, and it's going pretty well.
I think you should look at today's video, which is an hour and a half long now.
Yeah.
And you could probably easily cut this into the Sumo section, the who is Jason section, then Sumo section, then movie section, and then history section.
I think you're actually right about that.
Yeah.
So that's actually a very good idea. Another heads up, quick plug as well. From next week, I've actually finished editing. I've had for 3 years a recording of, I don't know if you guys are aware of Japan Business Time. I did this series talking about Japanese business with a
Yeah.
It was a good series, and I actually had an entire series that I sort of had a few technical issues with it that made me. I recorded it 3 years ago, and every time I tried to edit it, I got discouraged and I walked away. And I kind of went and I tidied it all up, and I finally finished it. And I'm going to launch it this week.
Sweet.
So that's going to be really cool as well. And I'm going to launch that using the watch party function, so it'll come up with videos, comments. So
I watched this channel called Collider, and it's all about movie news and geek stuff that I like, superheroes and Jedi and stuff. And they have a 1 hour podcast every weekday, but they will cut up pieces of it and say, Aquaman passes 100 billion at the box office, or the new trailer for John Wick. What do you think? And they'll put up these 5-minute segments of them talking about it, and it's so much easier for me. Down. So I recommend you do that with your Tokyo Tonight. I think you'll find it really helps.
I found a workflow. It's an awkward workflow, but you can do it where you can download the MP4 file and move it onto your iPhone, and it's really easy to edit on iMovie on the iPhone, and it renders really well. Cool. So I'm doing that, and that makes it easy. So yeah, I'm going to keep it going. But exactly 5-minute videos, even for me, I don't want to watch back a 1 hour video. Sometimes I do get into watching them. I will rewatch them, but 5-minute videos are really easy to watch.
Yeah. So if you have time, think about doing that with this video.
Yes, I will think about that. Hey, look. So as expected, my apology. I was shocked to realize we hadn't had you on.
Now we kicked you off. We got you.
Well, not only that, but I think we could probably go on and we could do this for like 5 hours. I think without breaking a sweat, actually. So
Tokyo in May, Hiko. I hope we can maybe see each other for a moment.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I mean, I would be honored if you're going to be catching a sumo tournament.
Yeah,
we could work something like that in as well. It'd be great to catch up.
Last plug. Speaking of Tokyo, March 30th is going to be the probably Hanami.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, right. Always a huge mistake to schedule it this early, but what the hell? It always ends up being around that time, and people want to make plans, so that's when we've set it, March the 30th, and it's going to be awesome.
All right.
So if you're in Tokyo, check us out.
Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. I love talking.
Links to Jason's channel in the description.
Yeah, yay.
In fact, it's actually there. That's right. Yes, there. The links are there. So subscribe to Jason. He's got awesome sumo, awesome history stuff as well. And peace.
Peace. See you guys.
Good night.
Have a good weekend. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for coming on, man.
I have to stop doing this so I can stop the live stream. Otherwise, I don't know how long to do this. It's like those awkward laughing scenes on Austin Powers. Let's stop.